or Survival on podcast. Let me give you a little idea of where I'm coming from. So I personally call myself a survivalist, um, because preppers are a unique breed of person, and I respect preppers. I know a lot of them. I know a few of them. I don't know a lot of them. I know a lot of preppers on YouTube. I know a few in real life. And all in all, great people. All in all, smart people, resourceful, the kind of people you want in your zombie survival squad. However, there's a certain mentality inside of prepping that I reject, which is uh, having a dependence on more stuff. Um, the prepper feels prepared when they have a lot of things. Now, what I want to try and communicate in this video is fortify what you already have and you'll be 10 steps ahead. Because when we were experiencing the natural disaster, Hurricane Debbie, which was only a hurricane category 1 for a few hours, then it hit land, broke apart, and was no longer considered a hurricane. It was a tropical storm, right? Well, um, we lost power for almost 3 days. And the point about that is when we lost power, okay, we were still able to flush our toilets because we live on septic. We had stored water and we had to store the water because we were on a well. People in the city, when they lose water, certain areas in the cities, you don't lose water. So you can pump as much water as you want out of the faucet and you're actually going to be fine. And so people in the city, they actually have to prepare a little bit different than us in the country because if you typically don't lose water in the city because the water plant is your source of water and that system is not dependent on the grid. Well, it's not dependent on your local grid, it's dependent on you get it. So if their water goes out, if they don't have water, you're actually in big trouble. Like that's a worse problem. Like that's a larger natural disaster that's like serious. Okay. So, like I said, cities don't lose water. They may lose electricity and they may lose I don't know. Um but they won't lose water necessarily unless it's a large scale event. Now, the point I want to make here is in the country, we were able to flush our toilets, but we had to store water. We had food. We could cook outside if we wanted to after the storm passed. We could have a fire. We could do all kinds of things with a fire if need be, or if the situation arose. Um, but the number one thing we didn't have was AC and water. Now, some people say, okay, I will get a pump so that I can hand pump out of my well. Here's my point. Yes, if a hand pump costs you 300 and a solar system to run your well costs you 3 grand, obviously you're going to get the 300 pump. Just, in comparison that way. But I would think big picture and I would go, okay, so strategically, so I can have water to survive, I want to get that pump. But what would it take for me to get a solar system and some kind of other, well, a solar system to run the entire system? Now, if I'm installing a solar system to run my um pump, my water pump to pump it up out of the ground, out of the well, then can I also afford to start preparing a power system to run an air conditioner? Now, here is my thought. In the apocalypse, if I have running water, if I can flush the toilet, and if I have AC, okay, I'm doing pretty good. Now, a little bit later, you're gonna have to worry about uh, food storage, food preservation, and well, food collection, but let's talk about food preservation. And then later on, you're going to have to come up with these different solutions to different problems. So for the most part, let's just stick short term. What would be the best option if the power goes out? Because you have people who have generators, and they're like, I have a generator, and they splice in their generator, and then they have electricity. Okay, that's fantastic. And I think you should have a generator because short term to midterm generators would be perfect. Um, the difference would be you would run out of fuel eventually. So solar is permanent long term unless you have an EMP. But I also have an answer for EMP. I call them EMPers because sometimes that's all they think about. And so this is just an example of, okay, here's where I'm at strategically, tactically, what I can and can't do, and what a natural disaster puts in the disposition a natural disaster puts me at. Okay, we're going to pause for a coffee break. Now, I am a survivalist. So what I want to do is survive. Some preppers have this mentality of, I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. I'm going to, make a last stand. I'm going to this, I'm going to that. Okay. I have the responsibility to not be the reason my children pass away. So what that means is I actually have to work my tail off to try and keep my children alive. And, I'm actually at a dilemma because if an EMP happens, I'm supposed to rendezvous with my buddy and we're supposed to head back to our HQ. But because of my current life circumstance, I'm not living with my wife. And I wonder what I'm supposed to do in regards to them and her at that point, because I would be in Tallahassee. I didn't want to say Tallahassee. I'm going to have to edit that out. Okay, I'm in my AO, and I'm going to be moving to a different AO. So what should I do while I'm in this AO before I move to the other AO? So something to think about, but here is my point. I don't want to rip on preppers. I don't want to distinguish myself so far away from preppers that preppers are like, oh, he's a snob. He wants to, distinguish himself from us and he doesn't like it. No, there's some mentality to preppers that I think make them fall short. See, a survivalist is concerned about surviving. A prepper is concerned about prepping. Okay. And I think that if a prepper is not in some way also of the survivalist mindset, then they are going to be limited in their application because preppers say, oh, the more I have, the better off I am. And I think where they fall short is application, practice, implementation, and turning theory into reality. There's theory and then there's reality, and you need to find out what theory and reality are and the gap. You need to figure out the gap between the two. So I'm actually going to make this its own recording, its own segment, because I've got to go in here and edit this. So thanks for watching Dean of Survival, wherever you get your podcasts.